Good afternoon, everyone. It is Thursday, April the 9th, 2020. It is currently 3:40 p.m. Central Time, and I'm coming to you live from Victory Baptist Church. Once again, here I am, behind, in front of the microphone, whatever the correct way to state that. I'm speaking into this microphone. I am live. Hopefully, you're tuning into the live broadcast. If you're not listening to us live, well, you really should be. And if you need to know how to do that, you can email me at newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. That's newsif, right? newsif@yahoo.com. And, well, I'll give you any information I can to help you listen to us live. But I think by the time we're done with this episode of the Theology Central podcast, you're going to know everything you need to know about keeping up with everything that we're doing, all right? You're going to get a lot of information. So if you can, grab something to write with, something to write on. You can use your electronic device, open up the notes section so that you can take a few notes, because I'm going to give you some very important information, a lot of website addresses, a lot of information about what we're doing, and this is very, 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 very important. I implore, I beg, I plead with you that this is one episode where I need you to give me feedback, because I need to make some decisions of what to do, how to work things so that we are ensuring that all of our money that we're spending is being spent wisely. It's keeping that we're spending our time, energy, and money doing things that are being utilized by people that people like, that people appreciate, and that we can get rid of maybe things that are not quite being utilized to save money for other things, if that makes some sense. So your feedback is would be greatly appreciated. Forget appreciated. It's needed. It's critical. This is one of those times I need listeners to actually take the time to email me, because this would be very, very helpful. All right. So are you ready? In this episode of the Theology Central podcast, we're going to be talking about podcast. Yeah, that's shocking. We're going to be talking about Podpages. Wait, you don't know what a Podpage is? Stick around. You're going to find out. And we're going to be talking about our website. Yes, our website. And all of these things are made and built for you, the listener, and for you who may not even be a listener yet, but maybe sometime in the future, I'm speaking to you, somewhere down the road, maybe 3 months from now, 6 months from now, hopefully you will discover us. So this information is for you as well. Maybe when you do discover us, you'll come back and you'll go back through the archives and find this episode and go, oh, he was talking to me 6 months ago, 3 years ago. Yes, I'm talking to you right now. So for those who aren't listeners yet, welcome. Thank you for subscribing and for listening just whenever you actually show up. But for those who've been with us, all of these things that I'm about to give you, yes, they are for your benefit. And hopefully you can tell me which things you think work the best, which things you're using, and give me some information. So are you ready? Here we go. Let's begin with the church website. Now, I know having a church website is nothing unique in 2020. We're probably way behind the times in that we've never really focused on a church website. We have had different kind of variations of a church website, but it was always something that I kind of put together. I didn't really like it. I didn't really felt it was useful. I didn't really feel like anyone was using it. I didn't really like it. And so boom, it would get deleted. And so we've kind of tried a couple of times, but now we've got one that's definitely in place. I think we're going to leave it. And hopefully it will be utilized. But this is kind of a place to go to for at least, one, it's designed for people to hopefully discover us. And two, it does have one very good feature that anyone who listens to us may want to check out. And I will explain that in just a minute. So how do you get to our church website? Now, for all of these web addresses, I'm going to actually be... While I'm talking, I'm going to be actually searching for them to ensure that everything is working correctly, because we've had some technological problems since yesterday. The last 24 hours has been crazy. So now that everything is fixed and I believe ready to go, that's why I'm going to actually search for them. So let's start with the church website. Here we go. VBC. stands for Victory Baptist Church. VBC, the number 66, VBC66.org. That's very simple. VBC66.org. VBC66.org. Please go to the church website. We would greatly appreciate it. Now you may say, what does the church website have to do with Theology Central? If you're not familiar, Theology Central is a podcast of Victory Baptist Church, located in the middle of nowhere, Texas. That's where I currently am sitting, in the back of Victory Baptist Church. Yes, I'm sitting at the back of the sanctuary. That's where I currently am live broadcasting from. So, yes, that's why I'm sending you to this website. VBC 66, VBC, Victory Baptist Church. You may say, why 66? Number of books in the Bible. VBC66.org. Go there. Now, once you're there, when you first arrive, you'll arrive at the home page. You will see a picture of a Bible, and it says, Equipping Christians, Victory Baptist Church. At the top, you'll see a tab for Home, a tab for About Us, a tab for Listen Now, a tab for Podcast, and a tab for the Spreaker app. Now, the Spreaker app is the app that we really recommend everyone who listens to get. We really do, because the Spreaker app allows you to listen to me when I'm live on the air. Now, if you get the Spreaker app, here are very simple instructions, all right? You can go to the website. If you go over to the Spreaker app section, to the tab, tap on Spreaker app, which I just did. It's going to say Spreaker app, available for iOS and Android. Follow podcast, mark your favorite episodes, and share episodes and shows. Get it on Google Play or listen on Apple Podcast. You can tap on that. It will open up your app store on your mobile device, and you can download the Spreaker app. Once you download the Spreaker app, now for some reason these instructions confused a lot of people for a very long time. So hopefully I can clarify it once and for all. Once you have the Spreaker app downloaded, do a search for VBC, which stands for Victory Baptist Church. You should be able to find us. It'll be kind of a grayish background with a green cross, and it says Victory Baptist Church. You tap on that. That will bring up, it will bring up our podcast page. It will say VBC, and it will say, by Victory Baptist Church. You tap on the words, by Victory Baptist Church, and that will open up a screen that has all of our podcasts. Go under each one, hit the little star on the right-hand corner. That makes us a favorite, and there should be a big yellow button either on that first main page somewhere that says follow us. Tap the follow us button. You'll put in your name and an email address. You will now be one of our followers. One, that's very helpful because we see how many people are actually following us on the Spreaker app. We need to get those numbers way up. Two, you'll get notified every time I hit the big red go live button. Dun, da, da. Then you can listen to everything. All of our podcasts are there. All of them. All right. We'll be talking about those podcasts in a little bit. We'll go through each one and explain why they exist and what you can gain by listening to that particular podcast or subscribing to it. Does that make sense to everyone? Everyone should say amen, okay? All right? Yes, I can't hear you, but everyone should. I can't believe how many people were confused by that. And they're like, well, you went live and I didn't know you were live. Well, I went live under the Theology Central podcast, and the only one you're following is the VBC podcast. So I don't know how you expected to hear me. So yes, you've got to have all of them, all right? So if that makes sense, because I don't go live under the same one every time, because each podcast has a different theme, a different focus. So when I go live under the one that it's relevant to. Does that make sense? All right, there you go. Get the Spreaker app. Now, another important thing, if maybe you don't want the Spreaker app, or maybe you already have a podcast app that you use, or maybe you don't know what to do, if you go to VBC66.org, there again on the top, and you'll see all of these different tabs, Home, About Us, Listen Now. You can even listen to us, and even listen to us live on the VBC66.org website. You can even listen to us live and all of our past episodes on demand. So you can go to Listen Now, or there's a tab that says podcast. Tap on podcast and voila! Guess what you discover? A place to subscribe to us basically from every major podcast platform on earth. Here is all the places you can subscribe to us. Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Castro, Stitcher, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Breaker, and Spreaker. There you go. Breaker, Spreaker, Overcast, Pocket Cast, Spotify, Apple, Google, all right there. So you can go there, tap on the little tabs it's going to be easy for you to realize. If you're using a mobile device, guess what? It's going to open up the App Store so you can download one of those podcast apps, and then you'll have to do a search for us, VBC, Theology Central. You can find us. It should be very simple, should be very easy. And, I don't know how we're trying to make it as easy as humanly possible. So the VBC66.org website is a great place to start and just visit it. I mean, we spent the time, the people who put it together spent the time. I didn't spend that much time. Mary and Elizabeth, they're the ones who put it together. So they did the work, but it cost money. So it costs money to put this together. It costs money every month to keep it going. So please go to the VBC66.org website. If there's something there that you think would be helpful to have on the website, let us know. If we can do it, we'll try to put it on there and we'll try to make improvements. So you just tell us what you think will work. And if we think it's a great idea, we will definitely try to implement it as soon as possible. We want to make the website as useful as possible to every single person. All right. VBC66.org. There's the website. Now, let's go from the website to the Podpages. You're like, what's a pod page? What's a pod page? Well, it's very simple. A pod page is an it's supposed to be easy. It hasn't been as easy as I thought, but it's relatively easy. Other than setting up the domain, after everything else is easy. The domain part, I was all perplexed and confused. But let me explain. Setting up a pod page is very simple. Basically, if you have a podcast, you have an RSS feed somewhere, you have a URL somewhere for your podcast. You simply put that in. You hit basically create, and it creates basically a website for your podcast. So it's called a pod page. It's basically a website for your podcast. This is the reason you're like, you've already got a website. Yes, but we're trying to create as many different things in many different locations for the sake of discovery. All right. Here's the thing. We're not on a sermon site, right? If you're on a sermon site, you have a built-in audience, right? You have a built-in audience. We're trying to compete with all of the podcasts, not just trying to be, we've got all these downloads on a sermon site. Well, okay, yes, but we're trying to find people from everywhere, from all around the world who may never go to a sermon site. So that's why we're creating all these different ways for people to find us. So we have 2 pod pages currently, 2. The first one is very easy to get to. Simply go to Theology Central, all run together, no caps, theologycentral.net. theologycentral.net. I cannot make it any simpler than that. theologycentral.net. In fact, I'm going to make sure that it's still good. Yes, theologycentral.net. Once you get there, you're going to see Theology Central making theology. Theology Central making theology central. I think it looks nice. You may not think it looks nice, but I think it does. If you don't like it, you're free to offer criticism. But Theology Central making theology central. You're going to see recent episodes. You have them listed over on the. Now I'm looking at this on an iPad. It may look different on a laptop, but over or on a PC or on a phone. But on the iPad, over to the right, you see 3 little lines. You tap those lines, and it drops down a menu. You have episodes. If you go to episodes, you're going to see a wonderful feature. I'm going to tap on episodes, and guess what shows up at the top? A search bar. Yes, you can now search all of the Theology Central episodes, all of them. You use search topic, you search name, you can just sit there and mess with the search bar and see what shows up. Please use it and let me know how the search function is working for you. Do you think it's great? Is there something you would suggest that the search bar would do better? I can pass those suggestions on to the people who put together the Podpage website, to the people who created this entire system and say, hey, this is what people want, and maybe we can get it implemented. But there you have it, theologycentral.net. That's the pod page for the Theology Central podcast. There are some other features I want you to look at. If you go back to those little lines, to the drop down, you're going to see a blog. I'm going to try to post at least new content on the blog once a day. I'm going to try once a day. Go to the blog on a regular and consistent basis. Please do that. Also, you're going to see reviews and rate show. Reviews and rate show. Please go under the rate show function, especially if you have an Apple device. I don't know what it does for an Android device, but on an Apple device, it's going to open up to Apple Podcast, and you can rate the show and write a review. It may not mean anything to you, but you rating the show, especially with a 5-star rating, and writing a review increases the possibility of the show being discovered 100%. Everyone, please, 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 I beg, I implore, do that. Rate, write a review. Rate, write a review. Wherever you listen to a podcast, if it gives you a chance to rate a podcast episode, rate anything, review the podcast, please always do that. I know it doesn't mean anything to you. You're busy. You don't care. But man, for podcasters who are like the little, the little tiny small fish in a gigantic ocean of a billion podcasts, those little things are encouraging and helpful. So please do that. So there is the Theology Central pod page, theologycentral.net. Theology Central, all run together, no capital letters, theologycentral.net. Could not make it any simpler than that. theologycentral.net. Now again, may not mean anything to you, but it's costing money to have that there, all right? And so we want it to be utilized. Tell me what you think about it. Is it useful? You can subscribe there on the Theology Central pod page. You can subscribe and get information that way. I don't know what happens when you subscribe, but please try it out. Just try it out. Because you are the feedback that we need. You're the feedback. And is it useful? So there you go. All right. Now, also, on a pod page, you can do this with pretty much any website. There is a very simple way to save that website as basically an app on your mobile device. It's very simple to do on an Apple device. In fact, let me see if I can just do it right here live on the air. On an Apple device, you have this it looks like a square with an arrow pointing up at the top. You do that. Okay. And it brings up all of these options. Copy, add to reading list, add to bookmark, add to favorites, find on page, and then it has a button, add to home screen. If I hit that, it's going to add the theologycentral.net pod page to my home screen, almost as if it's an app. And I can just tap on it right there, and it will open up the site in the browser. Very simple to do. You can do that on an Apple device. Again, while you're at the theologycentral.net pod page, over on the right-hand corner, you'll see a little square with an arrow pointing up. You hit that. It's going to bring up all these options. Again, copy, add to reading list, add to bookmark, add to favorites, find on page, or add to home screen. You do that. I'm just going to add to a home screen right now. Hit add. And there it is. It looks like an app. And when I tap on it, it just opens right up to all episodes where I can search. All right. So please, 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 please do that. And I believe it probably works the same on an Android device. However, it is an Android. And I don't want to start a little war, but Android devices, I'm not a fan of, because every time there's ever been a problem, whether it was with a mobile app, with with anything that we do. Hey, I tried to listen to it. It didn't work. Do you have an Android device? Yes. Hey, do you have an Android device? It's always Android users. It's never Apple users. So I don't know what that means, but hopefully you can do the same on your Android device. All right, there you go. Now, that brings us, so there's the website, vbc66.org. There is the first pod page, the theologycentral.net pod page. Now the third pod page, the third thing, the second pod page, the VBC pod page. Now, what is the difference between the VBC pod page and the Theology Central pod page? Well, the Theology Central pod page is obviously dedicated to the Theology Central podcast. The VBC pod page is dedicated to the VBC podcast. What is the difference between the VBC podcast and the Theology Central podcast? Theology Central podcast is our daily podcast where we talk about everything. We can do anything. It's kind of a free-for-all. We're not really restricted. The VBC podcast is simply dedicated to the preaching and teaching that happens here at Victory Baptist Church. It is dedicated to the Sunday school lessons, the Sunday morning sermon, the Sunday night sermon, and the Wednesday night sermon. That is what the VBC podcast, that's all it's for. Just that. We want to make that as simple as possible when people simply want the sermons or the Sunday school lessons. That is where they are located. So the VBC pod page is dedicated to that. And since it's focused on the preaching and teaching of the church, this is very simple. This is the way you get to the VBC pod page. You ready? Sermons dot, in fact, I'm going to pull it up right now. Make sure it's working. Sermons dot VBC66.org. Sermons dot VBC66.org. Sermons dot VBC66.org. sermons.vbc66.org. Please go there. Now, you're going to see some differences on the VBC pod page. And this is a this is a frustrating situation because this is where money gets involved. And I hate that. I hate this, but this is the case. The Theology Central pod page, we are utilizing their Pro plan. That's why you have the search option. If you go to the VBC pod page, guess what is missing? The search option, which is very frustrating because you think the search option would be a part of at least the basic plan. I mean, it's search, but no, they put that in the Pro plan, which you understand. They want to move you from the basic to the Pro plan. Now, the basic plan is $5 a month. The Pro plan is $15 a month. Now, I know $15 a month doesn't sound a lot to you, but it is a lot to us considering we are paying for to be on Spreaker. That's our Spreaker. That's our hosting site. That's basically $100 a month for us to be able to go live and have all of our podcasts there. So that's a lot of money. We have the our monthly fee for our website. We have the monthly fee for the Theology Central pod page, which is $15 a month. And then the VBC pod page, if we were to do that one as the Pro plan, that would be $15 a month as well. I know that's not a lot. I would like to move it to the Pro plan just for the search function. I think the search function is very helpful and a lot of people have asked for it. So we're going to see what we can do. Here's really the dilemma. We're on SoundCloud, all right? We're on SoundCloud. And I've wanted to get rid of SoundCloud for a long time, but here's why I do not. SoundCloud continues to pull in more numbers than I think everything else combined. We're at 34, 36, 37, 38, maybe even close to 40,000 downloads from SoundCloud alone, and I don't even know what period of time that's for. Those are big numbers compared to everything else. So I just can't seem to get the SoundCloud people to move to any of the other options. Now, the SoundCloud, and one of the reasons the SoundCloud page is also so very important, and I want you to really think about this. The SoundCloud page is host for the Theological Musings podcast. Theological Musings podcast. You say, why is that significant? Are you ready? Here's why it's significant. Theological Musings podcast is a catch-all for everything I'm doing for any of our podcasts. For any of our podcasts, they go to Theological Musings. They all go there. So it's a catch-all, so we want it there. And I would love to create a pod page for theology, for Theological Musings, because that would be awesome. That would be great too. But again, that would require another $15 a month versus, you see how it just starts adding up. So right now we don't want to get rid of SoundCloud. If I could get rid of SoundCloud, that would save us, I think, $24, and then that would easily cover the price for the VBC. So it's always like, well, what about this? What about that? So here's the thing. This is what I want you to remember so far. The VBC66.org website, visit it. The theologycentral.net pod page, visit it, use it. Let me know what you like, what you don't like. Check the blog section. Check all of the sections. Hit the subscribe button. Let me know how it works. What features you like, what features you don't like. The VBC pod page, which is sermons.vbc66.org. Sermons. Make sure I got that right. As soon as I'm saying it, I'm thinking that doesn't sound right, but I'm not used to saying it. So yeah, sermons.vbc66.org. Sermons.vbc66.org. Do the same there. We do not have the search option there, but if we can upgrade, we'll get that search bar ready to go, and then you can let me know how useful it is for you. All right. Now, with all of that said, let's go through all of our podcasts. Okay, we have a lot of podcasts. Let's go through all of them. Podcast number 1, Theology Central. Theology Central podcast. That is our daily live broadcast, live streams, all the things we talk about. VBC podcast. That's all the sermons and Sunday school lesson preached at Victory Baptist Church. You've got the Theology Central, you got the VBC. You have the Theological Musings, which is a catch-all for everything. And you have the non-Catholic podcast, which is all Catholicism related. And then you have the VBC Bible Institute podcast. All of those podcasts are available on the Spreaker app and all over the different podcast platforms. Please subscribe to all of them. Let me know which ones you listen to, which ones you listen to the most. Any information, any reviews you can write for them, anything you can do would be greatly appreciated and helpful. I think I've covered pretty much everything. I think I have. I hope I have. If there's anything I can do, this went a lot longer than I wanted to, but I wanted to at least get this information out there. Please utilize all of these things. Post reviews, and share it with people, and then give me feedback. newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com, newsif@yahoo.com. There we go. I think I gave you all the information I could. I tried. Every bit of information I could, I tried to give that to you. So let me know what you think, and any feedback would be greatly appreciated right here, and I definitely will take it to heart. All right, I'll stop right there. I think I've covered. I feel like I'm missing something, but I want to get to other things. We got other live broadcasts to do today, so I think I've covered everything. Website, 2 Podpages. The Spreaker app, we covered that. All of the podcast, Theology Central, VBC, Theological Musings, the Non-Catholic Catholic, and the VBC Bible Institute. Those are all we've got more podcasts on top of that, but right now, these are the ones we're focused on, and we'll see what we're going to do with some other ones possibly in the future. But right now, we're trying to really get all of this going and being useful. All right, I'll stop right there. Email me, newsif@yahoo.com. newsif@yahoo.com. I'm going to end this live broadcast, but we'll be back on the air shortly with a lot of other things to talk about today. God bless.